Hey punters, here we are for a bit of punting Melbourne style. I'm joined by Dan Kelly, the punter as always.
Hello Potts, good to see you again.
Special guest Mark Rhoden.
Hello Potts, good to see you again.
Leading New South Wales, Melbourne-based New South Wales form analyst.
That's, well...
champion vets and winning edge.
That's correct, yes.
Yep, so we thought we'd get together and just have a, we're in the midst of a, some kind of prize money racing war between New South Wales.
Yeah, it was an opportune time to get Mark on and we get some opinions from north of the border and south of the Mexican south of the border.
So we've got the racing administrators, butting heads in one section, and then we've got the saving grace, hopefully, or the voice of reason, or just to give us some hope in the other, coming in from the wing, Richie Irvine, talking some sense and making sure that there is some discussion about punters in this whole debate. So anyway, so
it's all turnover. The prize money's coming from turnover, isn't it? And it's supposed to be growing. So
I was going to wait for this, but to me, all it is it's a transfer of money from punters to owners and breeders and direct participants. That's all it is. That's absolutely what it is. 5%'s been taken out of wagering markets, and these racing administrators are pouring them into certain races.
Yeah, but punters are one of the two groups. Owners and punters are the ones who are tipping your money constantly.
That's right.
Owners for the livestock, and punters put the show on prize money.
So anyway, so Volandis has come out and announced five new races in the spring.
Yeah, so was it 6 Saturdays in a row? I think there's going to be $1 million plus race through the spring, the traditional Melbourne dominated part of the spring, I suppose. For me I've got a foot in both camps. I am a proud Mexican, as you should call me, but concentrated on New South Wales racing, as a lot of people know, for a long time now, and it's my favourite. Peter Volandis is doing a great job in promoting the sport to maybe, I suppose, through races like the Everest, a new audience.
Yeah, that's limit on that.
It seems to have been successful. Obviously everyone wants to then convert that into year-round customers, but that's not always possible. Seems to be doing a good job. I don't have a strong objection to them trying to encroach on the Melbourne spring. I think the Everest Caulfield Cup Day split has shown that managed sensibly, it can be a big plus for both states, in fact, and the turnover's shown that so far.
And the All-Star Mile in reverse.
Yeah.
What day was that on in Sydney?
It was the week before the slipper.
Was it the week before?
I think, it was.
It was one of the more exciting betting races of the year.
Yes,
there were various camps. It was,
and I've been going on about this for years, that Melbourne had really marginalised Sydney in both carnivals forever, pushing them into the football seasons in both autumn and spring. So you can't be surprised New South Wales are pushing back.
And the broadcast now to go with it, that they're going to go head-to-head on Derby Day, Channel 10 and Channel 7.
Yeah, that's clearly...
And Big Blue Day, so Volandis has said this morning, VRC have gone and put out their rights and copped the extra money and get
it's a fortune,
rather than going with the industry broadcaster who is Channel 7, who's tied up with racing.com and things like that. So
that's very true. I think he pointed out, Victoria like a call for a cooperative approach, but only when it suits them.
I'm surprised. I think the VRC are a bit like that. They've had it all their own way for a long time.
Centuries,
It's a big. They get all this money and then they pour it into a new grandstand and all this sort of stuff. So
which gets used 5 times a year.
So they do have.
I think once upon a time the Carnivals in Sydney were nearly as big, and they lost that audience and those crowds, and the VRC retained them, and so it's evolved to where it is, and now everyone sees that the VRC owns the best dates.
I think
that's you got to also give them credit, but they didn't lose it when the others did lose it.
No, they're a very strong outfit.
I think the Sydney Carnivals probably suffered originally in the first place when there was a nationwide drop-off in the sort of general Saturday crowds. My old man would tell me that, in the 50s, 60s, you get 20, 30,000 on a winter Saturday or, an off-season Saturday, which just wasn't the case in, say, the 70s and 80s.
That's a lot of their benchmarking is on their attendance,
Yeah.
How many can they get to the championships? How many can they get to the Everest and things like that? So crowds is a big part of it, and that's if you want to do that. We've always thought there was the undertone that the championships might be switched to the spring. But instead of doing this, they've gone down this route of the individual races and
So my take on it is I actually like all this argy-bargy.
Yep.
I think it's good for racing, gets it in the headlines. Having big races on the same day, that's all good. I just don't want it to be at the expense of wagering. And when it gets discussed in the media a lot, they just miss the point that it's at the moment it's at the expense of wagering.
And diluting the product's going to, diluting the pool of jockeys and spreading and the horses, like Mr. Journey and Arcadia Queen not being able to take each other on and things like that. It's going to dilute the wagering, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well,
so I think if they
can never stay that. It's
But if they can continue on this path of trying to innovate and have new race days and get a bit of competition's great, because there used to be great competition between the race clubs, and now that's sort of it's completely gone in New South Wales. Once upon a time the STC would do anything to try and get a result over what was the AJC.
Yes.
And that's so I like all this argy-bargy, but I would love it to see the administrators having their thoughts. So while we're doing all this, how do we stimulate wagering? What have we got to do to get to bring wagering along with it? Not just on those days, but regularly. Now, what stimulates wagering?
Because the other point about getting these $1 million races, making them premium meetings, is
it triggers a new level of
triggers
product
a new level of product fees.
Yeah.
But the wagering's got to be able to go with it. It's no.
That's a perfect example of them, and that's just tragic. And this idea in Victoria where if they make a profit, they get taxed on a profit.
Model,
If they lose, they get. I mean, it's just awful.
And that's just the racefields levies, let alone the GST and the pop tax. Everything like that.
And I think you're quite right, Potts, in the punter is completely last on the list in all the thoughts around this. But
just on that. So how long have you been doing Sydney racing?
Concentrating on since I'd say 2005-ish, 2006.
2005, so 13, 14 years. And not exactly hiding. You're on our show and Dico's show and things like that. And if you're in a police lineup, how many trainers, jockeys, participants, racing administrators would be able to pick you out of a lineup? Lee Dalton.
It's so close to zero.
There you go. So, and your bloke who's lived, eat and breathed New South Wales racing for 15 years. It's where the punters, it's just...
But I think...
I'd be delighted if I went into a lineup and none of them picked me out. However, I just want
some good people in racing. I miss working at the track because you didn't get them. Meet people and different trainers, jockeys, and that's one thing you miss working at home. But anyway, back to what you were going to say.
Just that all these new innovations and big prize money races are ultimately going to be paid one way or another for by the punter. It's even Peter V'landys seems to think it's if not a bottomless pit, there's still a resource that can be pretty richly tapped. But the thing is, you wind up, the percentages keep getting wound up, you keep putting more and more pressure on. The guy who can only afford to, say, lose $100 or $200 a week for his entertainment is not going to lose any more than that if he's sensible.
That's right.
And if you think he is then going to spend $300, you're getting into problem gambling territory. You're trying to make your money off that, which is very...
Well, with high
it's going to be the speed that he loses his...
They're going to lose
it quicker.
They'll lose it quicker. That's...
Well, Hong Kong's, have you seen Hong Kong's recent last 3-4 months? So they've been look at Hong Kong, always this and that, and their turnover, they've just thrown an 11th race on about a few meetings to try and get their turnover up. And their soccer betting is nearly about to surpass the Jockey Club last year. It was really encroaching on their horse betting, and now it won't be in this financial report, it might even pass it if this turnover drops down there. But, you don't want to kill the golden goose. It's sort of,
So I think racing's the best game there is. That's what has sustained it through a lot of misfiring, in the management of wagering, over the last 3 decades, really, since the internet became a thing. So we have to think about what stimulates betting. So it will be, as Peter V'landys wants, the gift that keeps on giving, provided they make sure that betting is stimulated, and they think about what are the triggers that stimulate betting. If they don't think about that, it will die because there are too many other options. It'll just slowly reduce, which I think is probably what's happening right at the moment, because the markets at the moment are so stagnant. They're carrying so much percentage until the final 2 minutes.
So is he trying to say here that so $1 million races we get big prize money and the punters want to bet on these big races? Is that what he's sort of trying to say? Is he? He's just saying no.
Well, I think he thinks that's the tip of the iceberg, and then if you get people involved at that level, then it'll trickle down to their, bread and butter sort of thing. So he's trying to steal attention away from particularly the VIC and the Melbourne Spring Carnival, in that key spring period when they've got no competition with the major league codes. So I just hope that eventually a couple of enough administrators might watch this sort of thing or listen to it on other things and read Richie's stuff and everything else. The points I want to make about stimulating turnover. First of all, this started with South Australia, so punters want to think about, and the corporate bookmakers should think very carefully about. We need this to stop now, to not go any further, and allowing South Australia to get away with a 15% point of consumption tax. We've all got to take some sort of responsibility. Now, I know that it's about where you're geographically based as a punter, not where you bet, but some action should be taken against South Australia to make them realise that they can't just overtax punters and expect the turnover to keep going up. So I'm not quite sure what the right way to go about that is, but South Australia's the starting point. They're the worst. They're the ones that think 15% is sustainable, so that needs to be thought about.
I wouldn't find it too hard to boycott betting on South Australian racing. It's quite awful.
Yeah.
Well, I know people that's where they make a living.
I know.
I don't want to, take their bread and butter away. It's got to be killing them. Yeah, it's got to be really hard.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a minute.
So, if we go back to the pre-internet days, what stimulated betting? Okay, the stimuluses for betting were when the opening market went up. There was a flurry.
Yep.
Okay, because everyone went up at the same time. So I implore administrators to get the corporates to embrace that idea that I don't care whether it's Wednesday for a Saturday meeting, whether it's Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, or whenever they need to put the markets up, but they all should have to go at the same time.
So that was in Richie's, I think it was mentioned in Richie's under his MBL section.
Right.
That it's 50-50 to be changed to that.
Right, okay.
Some bigger guys, sports bet, Ladbrokes are happy with that. But the smaller bookies say, well, we just won't go up. We just won't go up at all. But they're saying, well, there should be a rule like that at the races.
Yeah. You're not allowed to just stand there and knock them up. Yeah.
Not just stand there. Yeah. And they're just copying and pasting anyway. They're not doing their own work.
No. Yeah.
So they're just copying the prices up there anyway. So they don't really have a leg to stand on there. But so he said that's 50-50 in the wind at the moment. So
at the moment it's
to bring it back from 9
because it's sort of like maybe sports bet first and 365 in the tab. It's disjointed. It's a very minor stimulus to betting. It doesn't really create much activity. So that's a missed opportunity for racing. Okay, so then you've got all the time between then the opening market and the final 2 minutes, which is the current period where there's genuine activity, the only really period of genuine activity. So just as an example, the tab at various times with carnival types have gone on Friday afternoons or Friday lunchtime or whatever, various times with 110% promotion.
Right.
And a lot of the others have followed suit to some degree. And that's been a really good stimulus for betting because it's another point in the market where you can bet into a reasonable percentage, and you can back multiple runners with multiple players and build some. Is
it still going?
No, they've stopped.
So it's
just
stopped.
dead. It's dead in the water.
Dead in the water. Because I asked you about last, and they said they moved it to 5 PM or something, or they did something different, and then the next week it was all done.
Guessing, I'm assuming that it'll probably kick off again when the
Spring
when the group races come on. But
we were doing this 10 years ago.
That was it.
At the moment, you have a little flurry of activity when they also go up in a really disjointed fashion.
Yeah.
And then nothing pretty much happens until the last couple of minutes of betting on race day. In the meantime, it's 125 to 130%.
Exactly.
And it's just
5 minutes out, 3 minutes out.
It's
still
just
that
dead. So there's no stimulus to betting. There's nothing to create a vibrant betting market. And I'm saying that's a real problem for the industry. So I'm saying in all this argy-bargy with races and point of consumption taxes and increasing percentages, that they just have to sit down with the various players and say, what do we have to do to stimulate this? Because it can be done. So I'm saying it was as simple as the tab saying, Friday afternoon we're going to go to 110%. And everyone saw that as a chance to get a fair bet on, and look, you could see, just watching Dynamic, that prices were going everywhere for half an hour.
Yeah.
It was that's a good thing.
It's a good thing
for everyone. There's no loser there. It's good for the corporates. I mean, it gives them a foundation of their books. It's good for the punters that are trying to take some prices at that point, and it's good for the authorities because it's stimulating turnover. So I just am imploring them to think about those type of things, those stimuluses to betting in all this other stuff.
It mustn't have been worthwhile financially.
That's one thing. Yeah.
Well, I think
especially when they're trying to get their percentages up.
It'd be lovely to have someone from the tab that discuss, because they're the ones that know. But I'm assuming that they think at this time when racing goes to the back burner, like this is the height of the dark season. If we're ever going to have a break, this would be the time to have, which is never going to happen. So, you know, like a lot of people that are...
Yeah, I just would have announced that though. They say, they're Friday, they'll be back at the end of August or something like that, you know. Anyway.
A lot of people that it's a choice, you know, if they're going to have a break, this is when they take it. You know, and they'll come back at some point close to the spring, or during the spring. So I assume that's... The tab probably thinking, well, this time of year there's probably not enough interest to worry about it, you know.
I read something recently, I don't think it was in the Richard Irvine document, but it might have been on Twitter or some discussion there about a mooted change to the minimum bet limits based on turnover of the provider rather than just a flat. So, you know, a top sport would have a lower limit than a sports bet, for instance.
That's right. That's right.
Which, I don't know, there might be some merit in that. But
I didn't think it was going to go. I sort of read something about that, but I think it's, again, the small bookies were promoting that, but it's all about, you know, they've got to hold the same bet as, you know, the large.
And,
well, at the end of the day, we could sit here and make a real good wish list about how we'd like the NBLs to be set up. We're going to have some real fun, right? But that's,
at least we've got it.
Yeah, well, that's right.
That's right. So what needs to happen is racing administrators, so, you know, either Racing New South Wales or Racing Victoria or the others, need to say, okay, what stimulates betting? And say, you know, the NBLs are obviously an addition to turnover, so they're good, and they need to decide how they want to run it. Do they want to say, well, sports bet should have to bet a bigger limit than the others?
I find the tab does.
Tab do anyway,
which they're
I see a lot of the argy-bargy on Twitter and stuff, and I think, I find it okay, you know what I mean? Like, particularly on the metro races.
Metro,
I mean, like, I had a bet at Pakenham today, and they cut, you know, one of them cut that. Well, they've obviously sent me at $1,000, whatever. It doesn't. I mean, I really don't care, you know what I mean? Like, it's not great, but you sort of can't expect them to.
You can still get on, Richard. You can still get on.
That's right.
But you can't get on to win.
And the bigger problem would be contraction. If a lad breaks, say, doesn't spiral, you know, just that's totally hypothetical. I'm not suggesting that, but you know, if one or two more drop out, then it does tighten up,
which is a good chance of happening.
Well, I think that's what we should be discussing. Well, what happens if they keep going down the path we're currently on?
Yeah.
And my guess is just listen to Richie
this morning on the verdict,
and just reading the way the market looks at the moment, is that if we keep on the path we're on, where there's an extra 5% being taken out of the wagering markets and diverted to prize money and government coffers, the number of computer teams will probably have to reduce. They'll have to consolidate in some way, because they're probably
margin-wise they're not
eating each other a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they're eating the corporate. So either way, less big computer teams, less corporate bookmakers. That doesn't sound like a good recipe for me. If I was a racing administrator, I wouldn't want that to happen.
Just going to ask Rat, as being one of the most recent ex-employees of a sports bet and whatnot, but
2.5 years.
2.5 years, but still. So, but I'm just saying, what would it? So the point of consumption, they've said, because we're just about the rising percentages.
Yeah.
So, you know, Barney and Rat, they all have had a meeting, said, how are we going to deal with this? And now you've seen the markets now. And it's obviously there's been a change to the first three runners, and where they're holding the most money. And the first top three runners in the market, they've tightened on those, isn't there?
In early markets for sure.
So that's what they've said, that we've got to try and claw money back.
Yeah, and all the other changes prior to this one, they've absorbed.
Yeah, they've absorbed.
In terms of percentages, they've absorbed, because part of the thinking was that, well, we're big enough, we can actually take this hit, and it actually works to a big company like Sportsbet's advantage, because it's such an imposition on the smaller companies or less profitable ones. It's really hurting them. So if they just absorb it, keep their percentages where they are, and force them to compete, it's going to hurt them more. So it's a real competitive advantage in that sense. But it's gone too far.
So what are they doing? Well, basically, looking at markets now, there's around 130, 31, 32%.
Yeah, I mean that's common for a metropolitan early market now, you know, in a field of over a dozen. I mean, on the Thursdays at Wine and things like that, you know, 130 plus in a field of 6 and 7. It's just, I mean, how can you get?
Well, I'm
through?
seeing that as commonplace now, and
Yeah.
that is just no good for anyone.
Yeah,
We used to the first race at Pakenham Day with $1.70 favourite. There were about 125 runners, 125% or something,
Yeah.
with the odds on favourite.
There would have been more than 100 in the top 2. I mean, I didn't.
What do you go? Yeah.
Well, they just So that's where they're clawing it back.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we're right to have a go at South Australia for bringing it in the first place, for bringing it at such a high level, and then for not returning any of the money to the industry as well. They've got them everywhere there. But the corporates had the greatest run of all time for years with the tax arrangement they had in the Northern Territory. It was capped at some ridiculously low level, and that's why if they'd been paying a fair amount of tax on their profits in the Northern Territory, I think the state governments would have been less inclined. We would have had less of an argument to introduce a POC tax.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no
So
doubt
the
that
corporates
the
brought that upon themselves. In
corporate
extent.
bookmakers invited this upon the
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
and now we're all saddled with it.
Yeah.
With their short-sighted nonsense and the way they were behaving, all they did was meant that people got frustrated, and like the closing of accounts and stuff like that.
Yep.
All that sort of nonsense just meant that people got so frustrated they went to whether it was the ACCC, their local political member, whatever. Because of the behaviour of corporates throughout that period, probably 2008 maybe to 12, something like that.
And they had a very compliant government up in the Northern Territory,
Yeah.
so.
So then, like, of course, the administrators and politicians had a look at it, went, okay, yeah,
Here's a chance.
we need to make sure that there's no exclusion going on here, so the NBLs come in, but at the same time, they went, here's a chance.
Yeah.
Here's a chance. There's something in this for us.
And the corporates, I mean, now the pendulum has swung way too far back the other way, and we're seeing that.
Well, that was what Richie was sort of going on this morning. He said they're allowed to run a business and make it. They're allowed to make a profit, these bookies, and we need them to make a profit for a vibrant industry. To be there and be competitive marketplace and things like that.
And
but
they're all here, as everyone knows, they're all staking out their territory to take advantage of when running online came in, and then they didn't even get that. Jade, after a fantastic campaign from the TAB, who were putting themselves up as the moral defenders of the poor old punter who'd be sucked into constantly betting online on his phone, but they can just walk up to the EBT and do it. How they delivered that one with a straight face is beyond me. But
anyway, but I think just listening, because there was the articles about Bakula and Brian Kruger were saying they were on the lowest tax at 8%, but they're going to review it, and to try and compete with New South Wales, they might have to change the POC tax, in which we all thought, that's going to mean more. But listening to Mike Simons this morning, he said he spoke to Bakula afterwards, and Bakula was very aware that's a punter's tax, very aware of the sensitivity of around it, and that I'd say it'd be more that the tweaking will be
the distribution.
But
that's a bit of it shows how the administrators think. It's like, New South Wales are throwing money around like a man with no arms. Let's just bump that tax up a bit. That's the answer. They think they're the punters of the bottomless pit. They can just
that's the problem. There's an implicit taking for granted of punters in that, and I'm saying if they don't have some focus on what stimulates wagering, they'll be very disappointed because punters will slowly disappear. Like they're either recreational punters that are losing too fast,
just lose it faster, or give it away.
Professionals that can't.
Richie was saying, he'd be surprised if he was still betting in 12 months if the current everything stays.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd probably be in the same boat.
Yeah,
so it's getting tougher and tougher, and this is not doing us all any favours at all.
So what separates racing from poker machines is that in racing there are winners, which that means that people that are, once a week punters and stuff like that have something to aspire to. They see Richie Irvine or Sean Bartholomew or Dr. Nick or whatever and think, wow, I'd like to. That's something I like. I mean, that's what kept me involved as a recreational punter for 20 years. Like while I was running another business, I loved going to the track, loved seeing the Robbie Waterhouses and the Dominic Burns, and and thought, geez, it'd be great to make a living out of racing, and I'd bet in the Carnivals and so forth, and always in the back of my mind, I'd love to give this a go one day. I wanted an opportunity to come up, and I did. Right, so having that's someone that comes into it that's betting. if they just want to lose and be entertained, they can go and play poker machines. But if they want to aspire to actually one day make a profit out of it, they need people that examples of it to look to, like say like poker. So poker did a great job of promoting the people that were making a living out of it, and in their millions, young uni type students with a propensity to gamble went, yep, I want to be like Phil Hellmuth, I want to be like Daniel Negreanu, and they logged on, and the governments around the world and everything else have done everything they can to kill it, but it's still going quite strongly. Racing needs to take a lesson from what happened in poker and say our greatest asset really in acquiring new young people with a propensity to gamble that are interested in it is showing them that there are people that can win at this. It's not, and they're just normal people. They're not geniuses.
No, it's hard work. And, you know.
Anyway,
so yep.
That's a good day to end part 1 on. We'll,
all right. Yeah, sweet.
We'll
plenty of wagering chat. Back soon.